everybody. Welcome to the newest episode of Icons and Experts, brought to you in conjunction with my great friends over at ESLA, the Extended Stay Lodging Association. Be sure to check them out at esla.org. That's esla.org. Today, we're going to be speaking to an expert that's going to help you be more successful in your extended stay hospitality business. We've got none other than International Technology Hall of Famer Cindy Estis Green, who's also the co-founder of Kalibri Labs, and they know more about data. Where's that data? Where's that data? Than anyone could ever imagine. Today's going to be a really special show. But first, today's show is brought to you by Delisart Hospitality, the leader in third-party management services for extended hotels with dozens of years of ownership and management experience. In fact, they're the only hospitality company out there offering 3 key services, which you can get bundled or separately: full management, remote sales support, remote management revenue services. Hey, whatever you like. Delisart.com. Check them out at delisart.com for more information. All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into the world of hotel profitability, and we're going to explore how data-driven insights are reshaping the extended stay markets. And that's why we have Cindy here today of Kalibri Labs. We're going to uncover why understanding the composition of demand is crucial for extended stay success, the rising costs of guest acquisition and what to do about it, how to choose the most profitable guest acquisition channels, the power of benchmarking to boost your hotel's bottom line, and why all customers are not created equal and what you should do about it, and practical examples of how extended stay developers are benefiting from data insights. I hope you guys enjoy the show. This is a really fun one to put together. Have a good time and stay tuned, because at the end of the show, we've got a very exciting announcement. Stay tuned. Hey, Doug, it is so great to see you. I'm really excited to be talking about the numbers today from, you might be my favorite co-host here on ESLA's Icons and Experts.
Well, we couldn't be more excited. Obviously, when you talk about numbers, when you talk about data, This is really about understanding and gaining knowledge. And the best developers have the most information at their hands as they make these choices. Or if you're on a property level, how do you do the best you can in a certain marketplace? So this information is so important to all of us. It is absolutely the future. We should be using it today, but it is the future and how you need to look at going forward if you're really going to succeed in the extended stay market.
That's right. And one of the things, Doug, that we all get caught up is not knowing what we don't know. And that's particularly true when it comes to data. It could reveal things that we never thought about before. And to take us through it, we have got one of the coolest people in the industry. Of course, I'm talking about Cindy Estis Green of Kalibri Labs. How are you, Cindy? Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
You are like my favorite numbers person in the business, because you don't just like take the numbers. You really have a process to think deeply about it, and somehow are able to find pathways to gain incredible insights that others haven't been able to do before. So kudos to you on that. Before we get started, maybe just explain what I'm talking about and what Kalibri is.
Kalibri Labs is a company that has gathered data from over 30,000 hotels in the U.S. market. And the unique part of our data is that it isn't just RevPAR or occupancy and average rate. It's all the transactional data that is the composition of RevPAR. So we have all the arrival and departure dates. We have rate categories, channels, loyalty contribution, all of the variables that actually help you understand the strengths and weaknesses within RevPAR. Right. And from an extended stay point of view, the length of stay obviously is critical, and understanding the composition of length of stay is really critical. So we do benchmarking. We help developers figure out what markets to go into, and then we help operators figure out what business to go after. And one of the most unique parts about our data is that we track cost of acquisition. So we look not just at the top line revenue, but even more important, the profitability, which in today's world, with debt service so high, taxes, insurance, labor, and everything else, understanding cost of acquisition is a variable that could be as high as 15 to 25% of guest paid revenue. And we track that so that operators can choose the most profitable mix.
Right. And in its most simplistic terms, talking about how you get that guest. Are you working through an OTA? Are you getting direct business? Is it coming through a client that you already have, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Like, how do you feel about numbers these days in general?
Well, to me, the extended stay market and revenue management is all about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Okay. The thing that I find out about data is that there are pieces of the puzzle I didn't know about. Okay. So as you become more informed, as you become really more knowledgeable about it,
Right.
it makes it so much easier to get that blended occupancy and rate so that you run these, 90% occupancies or levels, which far exceed your competitors.
Right. And it's the whole philosophy is not all customers are created equal. Is that fair to say, Cindy, when it comes to profitability of your product?
Yeah. I mean, whether you're running an extended stay property or a traditional hotel, understanding the composition of your demand is critical. So it used to be in the old days, 20, 30 years ago, anything you got was good and all the revenue just flowed through to profit. It isn't that way anymore. So the diversity of your mix and by both length of stay, by type of business, by channel has a massive impact on your overall profitability.
So it's not that things have radically changed. It's just our ability to gain insights from what we're seeing out there is educating us in a way that we could make better decisions, right?
No. So actually things have radically changed. So the last 10
You gotta clear me up on this one because this is
So
amazing.
cost of acquisition 20, 30 years ago was 5 to 7% in the hotel industry, and it didn't change for 20 years.
All right,
The
and this is
last
because
10
those A's, for example, weren't really
all the digital tech players have come in the market, and we've gone from 5% cost of acquisition to 15 to 25% and rising. So things have changed a lot, and every market's different. So the demand and the nature of demand in every market is different. So knowing you can't just wish for everything to come through your website at rack bar rates. It's just that's wishing. But what's truly the demand in the market and what's a realistic fit for your hotel?
wow, Doug.
And one thing that I have found, Glenn, in the extended stay market, if you really look at the overall business, let's say in the 7 to 29-day segment, there is much business staying at non-extended stay hotels as extended stay hotels. And so all of the brands are coming out with new product, but knowing the data, on your particular market and really kind of digging deep, as Cindy's speaking about, is the way we're going to be successful, the way we're going to, get all of the extended stay business into the new products that are being built.
Yeah. So obviously, Cindy, every single market is different in the country. So going forward in this conversation, we're not going to be able to reveal very specific pieces of information, maybe some generalized nuggets that you could glean some information for. But it's important if you're developing or, you have an existing hotel that you really focus on the numbers relevant to your business. Sorry, please continue, Cindy.
Yeah. So if you're developing a property and you want to be in a particular market, the question is, it isn't every market. We have markets with 15, 17, 20 submarkets within it.
Yeah.
The range of performance in those markets in general varies dramatically. I just did an analysis in Washington, D.C., and the range was from some submarkets were 75% of 2019 levels, and they went up to 130%. So depending on the submarket, there's performance differences compared to how the recovery has played out over the last few years. And then on an extended stay basis, there's huge differences in how much 7 to 30 night business exists in every market. So if you're developing, of course, you want to go to the submarkets that have the most of that business, because why would you fish where no fish are?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And just to further explain, submarkets, one submarket in a particular area, for example, I was just at an opening of a property in a submarket of Salt Lake City. That neighborhood happens to have a lot of economic drivers, and they're in a huge period of expansion, making that specific submarket much more viable for a successful business than downtown Salt Lake, which is more of a mature market and doesn't have those specific business drivers to them, for example.
So we have 975 submarkets that we track because the density of supply has changed a lot in the last 20 years. So it's important to narrow your focus. And within any one of those 975 submarkets, if you're an extended stay developer, you're going to want to know, I want to be in the Dallas market. Well, which of the 18 submarkets has the highest demand for 7+ night stay and the least supply that is absorbing it? That's a simple example.
Yeah, the Dallas-Fort Worth submarket, for example, the whole market itself is probably the fastest growing market in the country, but don't let that confuse you because certain pockets in there are more viable for extended stay than other stuff.
No, Glenn, you're 100% correct. I mean, I just go back to the whole idea that extended stay is this puzzle. And again, even if you're operating in a market which could be relatively stagnant, understanding data, understanding the way that Kalibri has information, by example, allows you to get more than your fair share because you are, you have more information at hand. You know about your competitors. You know about the business coming in. So as much as I love to focus on developers, there's a ton of opportunity with existing properties and how they can do better at the same time by knowing everything that goes on in their marketplace.
Yeah, and I want to talk about both of these things, what developers need to know and what existing hotels really need to know. So, Cindy, let's start with people that are thinking of developing projects. So already we realize that some submarkets are better than others. What are some of the other numbers, statistic, points of information that they should be thinking about?
Well, when you're underwriting, you obviously want to be as accurate as possible. So from an extended stay point of view, most operations think in terms of 4 tiers. So there's 1 to 6 night stays, there's 7 to 14, 15 to 29, and 30 plus. So if you think tier 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how you kind of look at the business. You segment it that way. So you approach the business very differently. Getting a 1 to 6 night stay, that demand pattern is very different than those who are doing 15 to 29 or 30 plus. The sales effort is different. The approach is different. The housekeeping, the operational aspect, everything is different. So depending on how much of each of those tiers of demand exists in the market, your underwriting could be vastly different. And if you knew how much demand was in the market for that, then you could underwrite more accurately to know what portion of each of those tiers you might attract, given the location that you've picked, knowing how much demand is there. Plus, you've got brand and loyalty contribution and other factors like that to take into account to be able to factor in expectations more accurately.
And some brands operate very differently from a standpoint of average length of stay. Like some of the economy extended stays average well over 30 nights. So, it is a mix. It's back to this whole puzzle, knowing your product, knowing your market, but with your data and what things that Kalibri can provide, you can take a, far deeper dive to know more. And knowledge, again, continues to be power.
Right. And when you're talking about existing hotels, it's really important, for example, to have that right mix of business that Cindy was talking about. So it's not just an underwriting exercise. It really helps create the picture of overall potential profitability for your hotel. Right, Cindy?
And the way you go about getting each of those tiers of business from a customer acquisition and retention point of view is very different. And, to Doug's point, extended stay is not homogeneous. There's the lower tier and the upper tier, very different businesses. So a lot of that has to do with how much business you have in each of those tiers. And then what's the nature of the business? How much is commercially driven? How much is leisure driven? What else is in the market that you'd be competing with, whether it's multifamily housing or other kinds of lodging opportunities. So the more you know, and it's not complicated, it's just straightforward. And, to your point earlier, it wasn't available before. And there's been massive changes in the market in terms of the demand drivers and the levers we have in order to go after that business.
Well, for me, it's about turning on the light bulb on our minds, okay? Because as Glenn said early, you don't know what you don't know. And what you're talking about, Cindy, is not new, but we're now embracing data in a far bigger way than the industry ever has before, now understanding the more importance of it every single day.
Yeah, let me throw out there, Cindy, a general comment about data. One of the things that I've found phenomenal in my almost 30 years in this business is every time I feel like we're coming up against a wall for profitability or for lowering expenses, I'm like, we're never going to be able to do that. Some sort of revolution happens a lot with technology these days that kind of resets the entire deck and gives us a new opportunity. How significant is this new ability to understand data and translate into success? Is that really making a difference for new build properties? And then we'll get into some of the existing properties.
Yeah, I mean, we've had developers who did underwriting in a more traditional way, and then they did underwriting with data by length of stay, where they actually understood the full picture of demand in their market. It was a complete 180-degree difference in terms of what the underwriting showed. It was like a no deal, we can't do this deal, to this is the best deal we could possibly do. And that property, when it came out of the ground, just to continue that example, ramped in like 4 months. So, you just want to go where the demand is, and you don't need to be blind to that information if it exists. We guessed before because it didn't exist. Well, now length of stay matters to the success of an extended stay property. So understanding the underlying demand in that market is extremely important.
Well, when you're talking about fishing, though, Cindy, you allow people to look under the surface of the water, okay? Because the water over here looks great. Well, it may only be 3 feet deep, and over here it may be 70 feet. But you don't know that until you really gotta take a dive in, no pun intended. But it allows you to really get there, Glenn, and
Yeah.
It's changed how I look at markets for sure.
Yeah. Cindy, how are you thinking about existing hotels, how they could power up their bottom line through great access to information?
Well, when you're operating an extended stay property, one of the, ESOC or extended stay occupancy is important. So to quickly be able to see what your portion of occupancy contribution is at each tier and to target that, you budget for that, and then you build your acquisition efforts around it. So you spend money accordingly, whether it's salespeople or digital or whatever you're doing. So you operate totally differently when you're targeting different mixes of length of stay demand. And whatever your results are, you then can go back and look at how you did, and maybe you succeeded at some and not at other parts of it, but you're always tracking what's happening in the markets. And, some people think that there's been such a growth in extended stay and it's tapped out. It is so not tapped out. I mean, because we see under the water, to Doug's point, we can see that there's plenty of those 975 submarkets, plenty of them with lots of upside, because the extended stay demand is being absorbed by traditional hotels right now. So the ability to shift it to extended stay property is quite large. But you just want to find the right markets and submarkets. So, understanding that instead of wild guessing, we don't need to wild guess.
Yeah, and I also just want to throw out there, I think the book of ESOC is my favorite chapter in the hospitality Bible for everybody. No. Doug?
Well, and to Cindy's point on ESOC, in the properties that I have that are extended stay, we change the ESOC, goals by season, in order to maintain the highest level of profitability. And it goes all the way from as low as 25% to a high of up like 70, 74%, ESOC, all based on occupancy. But if you're thinking about it, and, again, if you have the information, that gives you a powerhouse of ability to succeed. And it's great.
Our software platform actually lets you on the fly just run ESOP calculations. So at any given time, you can see what's going on, and then you can see what's happening in terms of shifts in the market, because there's absolutely seasonal differences.
Yeah. And listen, I think it's fair to say the more you know, the better decisions you can make. And that's the whole point of this, whether it be an extended stay hotel or a more traditional type of hotel. Cindy, what else do we need to know about the numbers?
Well, besides for the length of stay factors, and besides for just overall traditional kind of occupancy average rate, you want to know the combination of rate categories and channels, because as I said earlier, cost of acquisition varies dramatically. So you can be paying anywhere from, 5% to 35% to get your business. Everybody obviously wants more business at the 5%,
Yeah.
but you're not going to get it. It's not so realistic. So what's changed with the commercial approach to customer acquisition and retention is the need. It used to be that commercial teams, salespeople, revenue managers, everyone just focused on getting as much top line revenue as they could. That same team now has another job to do. They have to figure out what cost of acquisition is, and they have to come up with the right mixture or the right business mix, which is a combination of rate categories. So things like government or advanced purchase or RevPAR or package. They have to come up with that business mix and which channels it comes through. And then they have to make those channels, kind of grease the wheels of those channels to make sure they can get the business through those channels. So it is a bigger job for the commercial teams. We've developed a model we call commercial strategy, which our software is based on this, but we're actually coming up with an industry certification around commercial strategy. And what that does is it helps the commercial teams think more broadly about their roles beyond just let's get as much business as we can get and make it more than last year. Now it's like, well, we have to think of the cost of acquisition and factoring in things like loyalty contribution, whether you're part of a brand or not. Retention matters. So the more business you can keep and the customers that will come back are less costly than having to get new customers every time. And this isn't just a game of, we want as little OTA business as we can get. You're going to have OTA business. The question is, what is your optimal or most profitable mix?
Doug, how do you think about that? You see the numbers. How do you respect them and get to where you want to be?
Well, we try to, when we budget or we plan for the next year, we try to put all the pieces together. Now, I will tell you that data is a tool, and a tool that's not used is worthless. Okay.
Yeah.
You can put it on the table and not use it. So, but the combination of using these tools and then good old fashioned salesmanship too, like Jimmy Taylor talks about, knowing your competition, knowing their qualities, knowing their, what they're good at, what they're not, knowing all of the companies in your immediate area, diving as deep as you can into these areas. You take that sales ability and data, and that's where really the cream is as far as how good you can make the profitability and numbers for your property is based on using all of the tools.
Yeah. And for a deep dive in sales, make sure you check out the July 26th episode of Esla Icons and Experts featuring Jimmy Taylor of IHG. One of the things that I'm most excited about is we're getting out there, we're spreading the gospel about extended stay, because as Cindy, you said, there's so much room for development in there. So one of the great ways is starting December 3rd, Esla is going to be starting a series of regional development meetings along with you at Kalibri Labs. First one, December 3rd in Atlanta. Not much to share yet, but what can you tell us, guys?
Well, we're expecting to be able to share some overview of the regional markets. So giving some indication, like I said, where are those rich pockets of opportunity in some of those regional areas? And then we want to also get developers and operators to talk about best practices. Like, what is it? There is a difference in running an extended stay property from a not extended stay. And there are nuances and there are things you need to learn, and you can't just kind of go in thinking you're going to underwrite or operate in the same way. So we're hoping these regional meetings will enable both a more informed community, both on the data side, but also on the best practices in terms of underwriting and operating.
Listen, generally speaking, I think regional meetings are the future of where we are going. They're more concise. They're less expensive to go to because you don't have to worry about the TSA and all that kind of good stuff. And what I love about the format, now, Doug, I don't know much about the format of these events because we're just starting to get into discussing it, but they're shorter, they're more pointed, and they also give people a great opportunity to get to know each other.
And that's really what it's all about. I mean, we're trying to help. The Extended Stay Lodging Association is a nonprofit association. We're bringing the best minds of the industry together to try to share information, bring new ideas or best practices to the table. And these series of meetings we will have across the country in 2025, again, is being kicked off, as you mentioned, in Atlanta on December the 3rd. But it is hotel education by hoteliers, okay? People that understand, that live it every single day. So the best practices are not from a book. They're from, here are the things that worked for me. Here's where I failed. Okay, so avoid these aspects. Or from a data standpoint, how rich is this community that we're in today on a regional basis, that you can draw from? Because the opportunities are there. The brands are excited about the opportunity because they're growing, the demand is growing, and yet we are underserving, by supply at the moment. And so there's a great, great opportunity for all aspects of the business.
That's cool. And as this story develops, I'm sure you can find all the information you need at esla.org. That's SLA.org for the Extended Stay Lodging Association. Cindy, any final thoughts before we let you go today?
No, I really appreciate being here, and I'm super excited about the extended stay community and the partnership we have with Extended Stay Lodging Association. So we're eager to kick off these regional events, and we love working with extended stay developers and operators, and we'll continue to be building tools to make it even more useful for them.
I love it. Doug, any final thoughts?
Just really excited. Every single episode we do on these icons and experts just reinvigorates me, Glenn.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm so glad I'm in the business, and yet I'm so glad to pass things on. And it's just going to grow and grow as we continue to go forward. So thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Cindy. Awesome podcast. Really, really great.
Yeah, this was fantastic. And Doug, you're an amazing co-host. Cindy, thanks for being such a fabulous guest. I'll see you later. I want to thank all of you for watching our latest episode. So today we really talked about digging into the data. Data is so important because it could reveal things that we never even considered. And that's the great thing. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, the data tells you there's more opportunity out there. You're going to want to re-listen to this one. So be sure you check it out at novacancynews.com. Of course, at esla.org and on the No Vacancy podcast feed. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for Delasart for sponsoring this show again today. Make sure they've got 20 plus years in the extended stay business, and they've got a great variety of services for you. Check them out at delasart.com. That's delasart.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time right back here on Icons and Experts.